On this channel, I've made a number of videos on the Wednesday Night Wars, the whole AEW versus NXT thing, NXT and what they've done in 2020. I've talked about that a lot. But in this video, I want to try and bind that all together and do as objective as possible, review of NXT in 2020. Now, I won't be going through match by match or show by show or anything like that. It's just going to be a general, just off the cuff, shooting the breeze type discussion about NXT and what's happened to them in 2020. Now, really, when I look at NXT, this stuff all goes back to Triple H and everything he's been doing for years now. But as far as how that's been exposed in 2020 due to the pandemic and the lack of a crowd and trying to beat AEW and the ratings and all this kind of stuff, it's really exposed NXT. Now, I will say this because no doubt there are, those of you watching the video who are massive NXT fans. There are people watching this video who are the ones on wrestling Twitter who say, I just don't get what people are saying about NXT. I'm enjoying NXT more than ever. And as I usually say in these videos, that is awesome for you. If the NXT you're watching, we're watching at the moment, is just right up your alley and you're loving NXT and you see no problem with it, awesome for you. That this doesn't really affect you as much. It's more so just a discussion about why NXT is not failing. Well, they're failing at trying to connect to an audience that's not the very niche, hardcore, bell-to-bell, in-ring loving audience. That's the issue with NXT. And I get NXT, it's WWE's third brand, it's their developmental. Well, people say it's not developmental anymore, even though it kind of is. NXT lack identity. That's what I will say. NXT, what are they? Are they a third brand? I guess what NXT is, it's a quote-unquote third brand based upon bell-to-bell in-ring type wrestling, the in-ring based product, which, cool, there's a very niche audience for that, fine, but at the end of the day, you're doing 2-hour shows every Wednesday night, most of the time. Sometimes they do Tuesday night shows, but by and large, a 2-hour Wednesday night live weekly episodic show on the USA Network, going up against AEW Dynamite. Dynamite, they're very in-ring heavy as well. But the thing which AEW do, which NXT do not, is, for one, incorporate entertaining segments and trying to develop characters. Now, I know some of you watching this video would say, oh, AEW segments aren't entertaining at all. Okay, totally take that point. I get it myself. But the thing with AEW, they have the Chris Jericho segments, the Inner Circle stuff, MJF, everything he's doing, hell, Cody segments even, that kind of stuff, Moxley, all the segments he's involved in, Eddie Kingston, Park, cutting promos, all that kind of stuff. And then you've got NXT, and this NXT product where Triple H, based on what he's done this past year, pretty much instead of trying to tell a long-term story using promos and segments, instead Triple H just kind of falls into a monotonous, almost lazy kind of mentality of, oh, well, what matchup can we do this week to please the in-ring loving fans? That's really what it comes down to, because I look at NXT, for example, this past week, this NXT episode where we had a North American Championship match, a Cruiserweight Championship match, a Tag Team Championship match, and Candice LeRae vs. Toni Storm. On paper, an excellent, phenomenal show. 3 title matches and 2 of the best, women and women's wrestlers in the world going at it. But then you really look at you watch the actual show, and you're just like, this is just dull. It's 15-minute matches over and over. Pat McAfee will come in and do a segment, which Pat McAfee's awesome. He's the entertainment. He's what's captivating about NXT. Because the fact of the matter is, when you're watching NXT and all the wrestlers can have great matches, what differentiates the personnel is the intangibles, the stuff that makes pro wrestling cool, the mic skills, the character, the entrance, the overall aura of the wrestler, that kind of thing. So someone like Pat McAfee has that in droves, and as a result, whatever he's doing is inherently captivating. Whereas I look at, you just take your pick, your Johnny Garganos, your Finn Balor's, even your Adam Cole's. Even though Cole is decent on the mic, out of those 3, Adam Cole's the best on the mic, but still, I'm going to lump him in with the other ones, and just so many of these other guys, there's so many to name. Even Kyle O'Reilly's entertaining, but Roderick Strong, Bobby Fish, the tag team guys, a bunch of just Timothy Thatchers, Cameron Grimes, all these people, even Dexter Lumis, they have like a little something, but how Triple H is presenting that on NXT TV just isn't captivating an audience. It's like, yes, Dexter Lumis has like character. He's this like deranged artist almost. He's this like creepy art obsessed guy, and there's plenty to flesh out there, and there's plenty of character to explore there. But instead of really letting Dexter Lumis cut promos so we can understand him, or have more backstage segments and really flesh out a storyline for Dexter Lumis, have Dexter Lumis go on this several week to month-long storyline pursuing something or trying to do something and have a motive. Instead of that, just have Dexter Lumis have a 15-minute match versus Austin Theory. Instead of having Dexter Lumis develop a character, have Dexter Lumis have a 13-minute match with Timothy Thatcher, because that's going to kill the 2 hours of USA Network TV time and combat AEW. That's the kind of thinking which it hasn't really helped NXT. Now, one thing that's been big with NXT, obviously, the pandemic. If the pandemic never happened, which, I think everyone wishes never happened, but let's just say the pandemic never happens, NXT is going about their merry ways, doing the shows as they were. NXT had a fairly good direction going. Yes, very match heavy, but when there's a crowd, especially that Full Sail University crowd, you could get away with that. The Triple H model of the great matches, it worked because you had the Full Sail crowd, you had Mauro Ranallo when he was there, Nigel McGuinness, Beth Phoenix, you had that crowd who was so amped, so invested, and even if the match was like some random 13-minute match between Cameron Grimes and Adam Cole, even if it was just a random good match, there'd be like a much more of a reason to care, because the crowd's chanting something new every 30 seconds. The crowd's heavily invested. They're amped up behind every Adam Cole and Cameron Grimes move. Every high spot and suicide dive is followed up by chants of like holy you know what and mamma mia and all this stuff. That's what NXT was. That's the NXT product which appealed to that niche so well. That's the NXT product which in 2017, 2018, 2019 especially, really jumped out at that niche, because NXT, as people on wrestling Twitter have said, it hasn't really changed too much as far as what the product is. The product is in-ring emphasis, emphasis on matches, not as much about the long-term storytelling. And yeah, if you're going to try and tell me that NXT still has long-term storytelling, you're delusional. I'm sorry. NXT, from a long-term storytelling perspective, just this whole war, quote-unquote war with AEW, completely just gutted NXT of its long-term storytelling. I'll use some examples. For example, the build to NXT TakeOver 31. The build to that show. We remember, TakeOver 30 happened, August 20th sometime, late August. TakeOver 31 was October 4th. And from memory, this is what happened. The NXT Championship was being decided. Finn Balor, Adam Cole, Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano. That was decided September 8th. And then literally the build to TakeOver 31 began September 15th. It just began, leaving NXT, 2 weeks to build up to TakeOver 31. And the matches you had on TakeOver 31 were hardly long-term storytelling type matches. And that's just one example. I look at something like Keith Lee and Adam Cole, or something like, I don't know, the match they had between Sasha Banks and Io Shirai at Great American Bash. That match just got announced on 3 days' notice because they needed something to main event Great American Bash to combat AEW. Where's the long-term storytelling there? There is none. And it's so many different examples. Like, granted, injuries haven't helped NXT. Karrion Kross getting injured has not helped them. Ridge Holland getting injured hasn't helped them. A bunch of these guys getting injured hasn't helped them. For sure, 100% I take that point. But Triple H, as a creative mind, should, realistically, if this is the man who supposedly must lead the WWE into the 2020s, if this is the man who's going to be the chosen one as far as leading WWE, they need to have more to them. And when catastrophe happens and these injuries happen with Cross, Holland, etc., there needs to be a creative fallback plan. There needs to be storylines thought of. There needs to be creative done, as opposed to what do we do? You know what? What do we do creative wise? Have Johnny Gargano and Damian Priest have a 24-minute match. The fans will love that. Easy 4-star match. Reviewers will love it. The shows will get an 8.5 out of 10 because 40 minutes of the 2-hour show is going to be a 4-star match. Therefore, reviewers can't rate it negatively. Therefore, NXT is good. Our niche audience will be happy, and that's that. You see what the thinking is here? That's the kind of Triple H thinking as far as NXT, and it's something that's fairly worrying, because if this gets bought even more so towards Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown, then those shows are screwed. Because NXT, as I said earlier in the video, it did appeal in 2017, 2018, 2019 to this, audience of itself because of how they went about the shows. Because the shows are appealing to this niche audience, this WWE Network, wrestling-obsessed, match-obsessed audience. But then you transition that to the USA Network, a 2-hour Wednesday night primetime wrestling show, a primetime time slot, and it just doesn't correlate. It doesn't work, especially without a crowd. Because I've said this in numerous videos, just watching matches for the sake of matches, it's not exciting for a mainstream viewer. And people will say to that, well, NXT is not trying to target the mainstream. Why not? Why would you not want to at least even try and get your product more notoriety? Wouldn't you want to try and build up your audience? Because the thing with pro wrestling nowadays, this is including Impact Wrestling, New Japan to an extent, NXT, AEW, Ring of Honor, PWG, MLW, all these promotions, they're fighting over the same, 600 to 800,000, maybe a million viewers. That's the pro wrestling audience. They're fighting over the same, quantity of viewers. So why don't you try and branch out? Instead of staying in your lane, why don't you, build expansion lanes? Try and do stuff. Have compelling storylines. Establish Dexter Lumis as a really, even more compelling character. I get, he does great paintings and he's a bit creepy. Okay, you can work with that. Timothy Thatcher, he's Thatcher's Catch Can. Okay, you can work with that. Do something with that. Give that a storyline. Give us more of a reason to care. Cameron Grimes, instead of him just coming out for 2 minutes, using his accent to try and annoy people and generate heel heat and then get beaten up and lose, why don't you try and build a storyline based off that? Finn Balor, instead of everything he does being, I'm the prince, I'm the champion, instead of that, flesh out more of a character with that. These kind of things, having storylines where characters interact and build upon themselves, that's what NXT needs, and that's what NXT needed, when they moved to the USA Network, because that hasn't been there. The truth of the matter is, NXT has just resorted to, okay, let's have 3 to 5, or 3 to 4, 10 to 15 minute matches, that'll kill 2 hours, that'll get through the time, and then we'll be able to move on. That's literally what Triple H does with these shows now. That's all these NXT shows are. You watch an NXT show, the opening match will be 15 minutes, it'll be a pretty good match, and that'll be that. There'll be a match at about the 1 hour stage of the show, pretty good match, is what it is. There'll be a main event match, probably going to be a pretty good match, and then the show's over, and then there's been a few squash matches in there, show's over, and you go, did that really further a lot? They had a bunch of in-ring matches, but did that really progress characters? Did anything feel more compelling as a result of that? And time after time after time, I found myself saying, well, no. I find myself saying, well, that NXT show had a bunch of good matches, but nothing really memorable is going to come of that. So, yeah, that's been the video. I hope you guys have enjoyed. This has just been me trying to address what has happened to NXT in the past, really 8 months especially, because TakeOver Portland was the last kind of show where I felt like NXT was what it once was, with the full the big crowd and the investment and the chance behind the matches. And ever since, the pandemic and the short-sighted booking and the illogical decisions, it's led NXT down this road, which it's not the best way to go. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, like, comment, sub, you guys know the drill.